I'm Clodagh and welcome to the Home Learning Experiment. Today I have a very special guest on this podcast and it just so happens to be my husband Rhett.
Hi, I'm Rhett. I'm Clodagh's husband.
Nice to meet you. Thanks so much for coming onto the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So I thought we'd start with introducing ourselves and kind of introducing the Home Learning Experiment a little bit. So would you like to go first or me?
You can go first.
Okay, so I am Clodagh and I am a teacher, a photographer, and I am a mum of 3. So I worked in the schooling system full-time for about 7 or 8 years before I had our first child. So since then I've done some photography work, little bits and bobs, and also been doing casual teaching. We've got 3 beautiful children, 6, 5 and 3, and we are starting this home learning experiment, which is, yes, very interesting. We will talk more on that. Rhett, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Rhett. I am a carpenter by trade. And yeah.
A father of 3 children.
Father of 3 children. I'm here because I love AI and tech, and I'm going to try and bring that into what Clodagh wants to do and to try and help our son, which we'll talk about.
Yes, absolutely. All right, I've written down some guiding questions for us to answer, just to give listeners a little bit of a idea of where we're at, why we've started the home learning experiment. So the first question that I've written down is, what made us start questioning school in the first place? Do you want to start or me?
I don't know what made me first question it, but I think I've been questioning the whole school system for a while, and just realised, especially with the advancement of tech and how fast things are moving there, that it's just so outdated, and it's becoming more and more outdated pretty much by the second.
I would agree with that. So we, just to preface this, our oldest daughter, our 6-year-old, is in school, and our second daughter will be going to school next year, and our son is in kinder. So we're not currently homeschooling, and hence this is a home learning experiment. We are looking into this whole new world of home learning or homeschooling, and we have future visions of doing a big road schooling trip. So going around Australia in a caravan for a period of time, hopefully a year or 2, which would be fabulous. So, we would be doing some home education anyway. So for me, what started me questioning school in the first place. So I feel when I left, it was very much I was going to have children, they were going to go to school, they were going to go to private school, and then they were going to go to university and go and get a good job, which is, I guess, pretty much what we have been brought up to believe. And I feel when maybe first I started to question things was when I got out of the schooling system myself, and started a photography business where I started to look into entrepreneurial ways and realize that there was all these amazing people out there that had not taken this road and were really, really successful. So I feel that's when I started to have a look at things. I was maybe not everyone needs to follow this path. I guess that's where it started, and then was quite happy to send our first 2 children to school. They fit very well into the system, but I guess when our daughter started prep, I just had this funny feeling in my stomach. I was kind of is this the right decision? And I thought about how things were when I was teaching, and then just kind of started to wonder is this a system that I want her in? And she's had absolutely fabulous teachers, it's a great public school, but I guess I just started to think about some of the things that maybe weren't working in the schooling system, and kind of stumbled across home education, and which brings us to our 3rd child. So our first 2 children fit perfectly into the schooling system. They're self-motivated, they're very smart, they sit down there and do their work, they don't misbehave. And then our 3rd child, we've just found out, which we suspected for some time, is neurodivergent. So he does not fit into the schooling system, and this is kind of where this has all come about. Very different to teach neurodivergent children that are not your own, and now I'm questioning, do I want him? If this is in there, is this the best place for him? So this is kind of where this is all kicked off. So on to the second question is, what does home learning mean to us right now? Do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
I think for us, it's not about homeschooling exactly and keeping them home from school and teaching them. It's more educating them in other ways at home while they're at school. So, all our kids are pretty smart. We're pretty lucky there. So extending them, especially our oldest, extending her where we can, and then with the youngest, who is exceptionally smart but obviously has a lot of challenges. Teaching him more about his interests and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, like, home learning is something that I've just naturally gravitated towards. I was a stay-at-home mum with until they were about 3 or whatever. They did a little bit of daycare, but I think that just comes very naturally. We got all the books and all this kind of stuff. But I feel like I'm just diving into a new realm of this homeschooling world, what road schooling would look like for us as a family, but also if we don't send our youngest child to school, what that would look like. I'm realizing that there's so many different approaches. It's not school at home. There's all sorts of fabulous approaches that you can do. So I feel I'm just beginning to be okay, maybe if he was homeschooled, we don't need to set up a school at home. It could look very different. So really interested to learn more about, unschooling, Charlotte Mason approach. There's so many different home education routes that you can go on. And I guess you have, with that tech, kind of approach, I guess we're trying to find this balance where I feel I'm this is so wholesome, let's do art, let's be creative, let's be out in nature. And then you are so advanced with the tech that we still want our children to be part of the modern world. So what that looks like, and how we can advance and challenge them using tech, not sitting there on screens, but how we can use AI and all that to our advantage to further our children's education, whether it's academic or learning about themselves.
Yeah, I think AI is a powerful tool if used correctly. And the way I see it is, if you've got self-motivated kids who are intelligent, once they get to a certain age, then you can teach them how to use those tools to basically create their own sort of curriculum that follows their interests and keep them engaged and learning, and especially with the youngest one, who is incredibly intelligent. I think if you teach him how to use them the right way and have the right guardrails and structure around it, he'll be teaching himself stuff that we probably don't even understand by the time he's 9 or 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Which will be very exciting. So I guess our dream is to get on the road and homeschool them along the road for a period of time, not really knowing if there's an end date, what that's going to look like. So we're both going to have to be involved in the home education. It's not going to be all on me, but I feel there's also things that we can do at the moment while they are going to school at the moment, and watch this space about what we decide for our youngest child, who's he's only 3, so we've got time to decide, and he's in a fabulous place at the moment that's supporting his needs. But we just want to investigate how are people making this work, how are they making homeschooling work, what are they doing at home, how are they supporting neurodivergent learners. I feel this is just a question of, all right, what are all these different approaches that we want to learn about to see what suits our family. We want to go on the road, so we know we're going to be doing this, what's going to suit our son, what is going on out there, basically.
I think the reason I'm here is I find it as fascinating as Clodagh does. The thing that fascinates me the most about homeschool, especially Australia, is that a lot of the people homeschooling their kids are teachers,
mm-hmm.
which, if that isn't a giant red flag for the school and the education system that I don't know what is. Like the fact that teachers are not wanting to send their kids to their place of work is baffling. Well, it's not really. I can see why, but you know, that tells me that there's something seriously wrong, and you know, it's not all bad. Obviously, teachers are great, but the system as a whole is failing kids, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Absolutely. And I feel like this is where, you know, I've worked in the system for quite some time, and, you know, I've been out of it for a little bit, and everyone, you know, colleagues that I used to have, it's not like, oh, you know, come back in, it's a great job. It's don't come back. I think, you know, it's not teachers, it's the system. And, you know, things have changed in education and constantly changing, and maybe they're not the right changes that need to be made. And also, if you don't fit into the system as a child, like our neurodivergent child is not going to fit into that, you know, perfect system, then what are the other options? If, you know, and this is something that we're kind of navigating at the moment for our son, who isn't kind of like neurodivergent enough to go to a special school, but also doesn't fit into the mainstream system. Like, you know, well, where does he fit in? How does one educate someone like this? And a school's going to support his needs. And I know we're not the only ones feeling like this. You know, every group that I join, everyone I talk to, it's a real challenge. And it's not just neurodiversity, it's any child that doesn't fit into this like idea of what you should be like as a child. They don't need to be neurodiverse. Yeah,
I think your dad's been saying it for years that
Dad's
he
a
was
high
a high
school
school teacher, and that children should be taught where they're at, not by their age group. And the schooling system just doesn't do that well. It's better than it used to be.
Yeah.
And obviously the teachers try their hardest, but if your kid is quite advanced, then they're probably going to just plateau and cruise. And if your kid really struggles, that's very easy for them to get left behind and fall through the cracks. And then you get, you know, kids up to into high school that can't read and write, and it's just like, that shouldn't happen. The school system should not fail those kids that way. So, you know, and with the technology the way it is, it shouldn't be that hard to teach kids where they're at individually with technology.
I guess that's where your passion comes in as well. Like, you know, I've got a passion for education, and I feel like, you know, with our own kids, we plan on doing like, you know, on our road schooling trip, which will be really long, we'll be utilising technology to bring them further, which will be fabulous. And you have this like amazing tech brain where you can actually make that happen. You know, not just like log on to Google and do this, you can actually create tools that are going to do that. So, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that's the my thinking now with our son is to use AI agents to create curriculums, or not curriculums, work units of work for him. So type in, you know, what he's interested, if he's into dinosaurs or space, and then it will spit out a whole bunch of worksheets and stuff like that, and activities. I don't know exactly how it looks yet, but that's my thinking. And so creating worksheets and resources and stuff that are meeting him where he's at, which means that if he can keep progressing at his pace, not at the school's pace, or, you know, just following his interests. And then the way I see that working is by the time he's 9 or 10, he'll just, you know, create his own little curriculums, his own little, and he'll learn, you know, if he's wants to learn calculus at age 10, you know, the technology's there to be able to do that if used correctly.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, like when you think about homeschooling and all that, you know, I think as soon as you say calculus, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to teach him that. Like, you know, I was a primary school teacher, and I have no idea. I don't want to sit there learning calculus, but with technology, I think we don't have to. You know, our shortcomings are not a barrier to be teaching our children.
But it's not about just using.
It's raining.
It's not just about using tech to replace a teacher. That's certainly not where we're coming from. It's about using it as a tool to, well, if you're a homeschool parent, to produce way more content for your kid to consume, because if you do have a smart kid, you probably can't keep up with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the amount of books and worksheets, you probably print a week's worth and they do it in a day. So, you know, having these sorts of tools can, just help you keep up with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it speeds up the process. Like, I feel like, even when I was teaching, there was no AI when I was doing it, and it just took such a long time to source the materials. Whereas when these can just be, all right, I've got this fabulous idea, and then they can just be generated in a, in whatever.
And that's the other thing.
It's incredible.
That's what you're really good at, is having the ideas and coming up with those resources, which I think is something, if you're not a teacher, like I have no idea about it, I've only learned from you. If you're not a teacher and you're trying to homeschool your kid, or you want to try and extend them further or help them because they're falling behind, you probably have no idea how to actually do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do, but if you don't know how to help your kid and you want to, well then, I think we want to build something and build tools that people can actually use that will help them do that.
Absolutely. And I feel like with the technology that is at our fingertips, it can happen. So, that doesn't mean that the kids sitting on the, we have opinions about screen time and all that. Like, we don't let our kids on the screens much. They watch a little bit of like Netflix or whatever, and, use it to support their learning rather than go down like a, in an unhealthy way. And I feel like technology can be a big help there. Well, should we go on to our other questions? Not too long to go. So, what are our goals for the home learning experiment? Do you want to start or me?
I think it's just to learn what is out there and speak to interesting people and get their opinions on homeschooling, on the school system, on neurodivergent kids, how they learn, how we can help them.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Exactly what you said. It's just, building our knowledge. We're learners in this. We're just at the beginning. I never thought that I would ever even consider homeschool, like being a teacher, but now it's, something that's definitely on our radar for our son, but also we're going to be doing it. Our plan is to have this massive trip. We're going to be doing it with our older two. So I'm just looking to learn like as much as possible. Even, I listen to homeschool podcasts, even though my kids are at school. And they're fascinating. Like, there's just so many things that, I didn't learn at university when I was studying to be a teacher. It was basically like, this is what works and whatever. And I'm learning so much, even if I did go and teach in the classroom, that I can bring. There's so much out there that, I wasn't getting as a teacher. So it's amazing. And then our last question is, what are we hoping to find on this journey?
Meaning of life.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I think for us it's just finding the best way to help our son. Yeah, I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like, this has been the catalyst, is that we're just like, oh, okay, our son doesn't fit into the schooling system, like what are we going to do? I mean, I've been stressing about it for quite some time, and just looking into alternatives and how we can support him. And I feel like even just by, like, obviously this started with our son, but we've also got two daughters who are going to benefit from our knowledge. I mean, like, who knows where we're going to end up in 5 years' time. I feel like once you start looking through things with this lens, then you can't unsee it. And instead of like shying away from it, I feel like we want to dig deeper into these things. We've got this gut feeling and we're exploring, and we want to talk to as many people as possible just to, I don't know, learn for ourselves and see what works for our family. And it would be great if we could bring people along with us, because, we're certainly not experts, and that's why we're kind of starting this podcast, because I'm sure there's other people out there who are, I don't know, maybe having the same challenges, or, they can benefit from it too. So, not only are we going to help our son and our family and find the meaning of our new life and this new journey that we're going on with neurodivergence and, going away in a caravan together, but, we could benefit other people too by sharing this.
It's also not just about our son. Like, we've seen it in our oldest daughter. She started school, she loved prep, went to grade 1, and then she lost a bit of her spark, and you can just see it just sucks the life out of them. And she's at a great school. She's got an amazing teacher.
Loves
good
her
friends.
teacher.
Like it's none of that. It's just
the system.
yeah, sit down, shut up, do this for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for a lot of kids. I mean, it does work for her, but it's still the creativity is being sucked out of her. And she's such a creative little kid.
Yeah.
That yeah, it's just not the right environment. It doesn't breed creativity.
Yeah.
And I think, especially with the way the world is going, like the way I look at it is we're preparing our kids for a world that we don't even know what it looks like. Like,
yeah,
you know, with everyone will laugh, but there'll be robots in everyone's houses within 5 to 10 years. A lot of jobs will disappear. Like the world is, our kids won't need to learn how to drive a car. Like the world is going to be a very, very different place. I mean, it's a very different place compared to when we grew up.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, the school, I saw a good reel the other day. It said the schooling system is preparing our kids for a world that's long gone. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
So it's about, you know, teaching them critical thinking and life skills, I guess.
Yeah.
Creativity is going to be a big one.
I think so. And I feel like just like striking that balance between, okay, this is how you can utilize technology because it's going to be there. And then this is also how you create that balance. You know, we've got technology, but then you can sit down there and do an art project and you can read poetry and you can do all this. Like you want this beautiful, healthy balance, not one or the other. It's like, you like anything in life. It's a balance. And then, you know, how are we going to do this?
And I think the thing with homeschool that appeals to me is they can do their work in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And then they can just play, especially when they're young. Like that's how kids learn.
Yeah. And I think that's like something that's quite surprised me, like when I started teaching, and you know, I haven't been around for like 20 years or something. This wasn't like too long ago, or maybe a little bit.
7 years.
Well, no, it was a bit longer than that now. Like
7 years.
Oh, well, okay. But no, when I started teaching, I left
14.
teaching 7 years ago. Our daughter is 7, but about 14 years ago. Oh, Jesus, it is coming up. Here we are. All right, never mind. We'll scratch this part of the episode. But like, you know, the preps were playing and all this kind of stuff, and there was play-based learning, and I'm just, that's not there anymore. There's so much stuff on these poor little kids, and we've talked about this before, and you know, that's obviously in the education system. They're piling this stuff on our kids, but it's also society. You know, I think everyone's feeling that at the moment, you know, like there's just a lot. There's you got to do more, and you know, I don't know, maybe I'm having a midlife crisis, I don't know, but I just want to break away from that. I don't want that for my family, I don't want it for myself.
That's why we're going to sell the house, buy a caravan and leave.
Absolutely. So
we're not having a midlife crisis, we swear.
We might be. Watch this space. Breaking to homeschooling.
I should buy a Harley.
Yeah, well, why not? I should, I don't know, get a surgery or something like that. So. Do you know, I think marathon, that would be my midlife crisis. If I signed up for a marathon, that is a clear sign that I am having a breakdown, because it's definitely not on my radar.
But you can see why anxiety in kids is through the roof. And you know, people blame social media, but I think there's a lot more to it than that. There's just so much pressure on kids
to perform,
and parents both have to work. So which isn't ideal for the kids.
And I think that's another thing there. I mean, we were talking about that over a coffee this morning. Like, how are people making this work? You know, homeschooling. Like, obviously, you know, our kids are pretty good, but I definitely wouldn't leave them here while I go off and work a day. You know, someone needs to be with them. So financially, how are people supporting this lifestyle and, you know, the way that things are at the moment? Like, not that it's a lifestyle, it's a... But
I think that's the other thing too. There's probably a lot of people with maybe neurodivergent kids that do want to homeschool.
Yeah.
But can't, because they can't afford
for
someone to stay home with them, because the cost of living is outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, unless someone's earning $200,000-$300,000 a year.
Yeah.
The other person can't afford to stay home. So we'd love to speak to some people who are making it work regardless and how they do that.
Absolutely. And I think even like what we were talking about, you know, like I still plan on working, and it's like, okay, like how do you navigate that if you are going to homeschool and this kind of stuff. Like, how do you make it work as a family? How do you, I don't know, get some time to yourself, all this kind of stuff. So there's just so many questions. I think everyone's just going to have to listen to this podcast and find out with us, because I don't know, maybe we need an episode like 101 questions that we have about life. Brilliant. And was there anything else that you...
No, I think that's it.
No, I think that we've completed the first episode of the home learning experiment, and I guess we're going to be looking for guests to, you know, educate us on how this is going to work. We're, you know, going to be talking about our, you know, everything that we find. Rhett will be on here every now and again talking about, you know, AI and all the stuff that he's building and how we're making it work. And then hopefully, if you were listening to the first episode, you'll get to like episode, I don't know, let's say 20, and we're going to be like, guys, we did it. We've sold the house, we've bought the caravan, we're starting the road, and then we're going to be doing this podcast for the road and just like sharing everything. So please, if you are up to episode 20 and we haven't said it, please send us something to be like, hey guys, in episode 1, you should be on the road right now. All right.
And if anyone wants to give us a caravan, let us know.
Oh yeah, please. Open to that too. All right, signing off.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.